a treat, but steering the old-fashioned way on the racetrack is no fun in the sun. Before Jeffrey Bodine engineered power steering on race cars in 1987, all that horsepower had to be guided by sheer muscle power. And cars on the oval track weren't the only thing that suffered wear and tear. Just ask the drivers. In the Daytona 500, drivers raced 4 hours in 120 degrees, losing up to 10 pounds of body weight. Power steering reduces driver fatigue and conserves the energy necessary to charge the finish line and enjoy a good old-fashioned victory lap. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. A friend asked Henry Ford, "Soy, what you been up to?" To most people, this has been a greeting, but to Mr. Ford, it was an idea. I'll tell you how he used his noodle when I come back. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Phase separation is the separation of gasoline and water in your tank, which can cause corrosion. All hydrocarbon gasoline with no ethanol can suspend about 0.15 teaspoons of water before it separates. E10 can suspend about 4 teaspoons. That's over 26 times more. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Brought to you by the Renewable Fuels Association. Henry Ford's known for great ideas, but he really used his bean on this one. Soybean, that is. During the Depression, Ford's chemists focused on converting agricultural products into industrial products to stimulate the farm-based economy. Enter the soybean who, in My Fair Lady style, was transformed from dirt-poor roots into the plastic of star car parts like horn buttons, gearshift knobs, and body enamel. Soy, wouldn't you know? Ford didn't stop there. He also developed a soy wool-like fabric that cost half of sheep's wool. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. While some states are singing in the rain, others are drowning in drought. Want to keep your car looking spiffy without breaking county water restrictions? When I come back, I'll tell you how. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. The Department of Agriculture determined ethanol's energy balance to be 1.7 to 2.3. That's to say, today's ethanol production yields nearly twice as much energy as it took to create. Also, in 2011, ethanol use reduced tailpipe CO2 equivalent emissions by 25.3 metric tons. I'm Bobby Likis with 20 facts about ethanol. Brought to you by the Renewable Fuels Association. Counties often respond to drought by placing restrictions on personal water uses like at-home car washing and lawn watering. While this helps the water crisis, it can leave lawns and cars in the dust, literally. Now, I can't help you with a green, but I do know how to keep your car clean and support local business. Visit a nearby professional car wash. These days, full-service companies often recycle the water they use and consume 2 to 5 times less than you would with a hand home wash. Then, when the drought's over, celebrate with an in-the-driveway detailing and a long, cool drink from your garden hose. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Count down to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
Good morning. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Yeah, I'm laughing. I'll tell you, it's fun. How do you have fun and talk about cars? Well, you talk about the good stuff. Well, except that when you take your car into a service shop, you know, what is good? Let's see, automotive repair, root canal. Well, it doesn't have to be that way, and that's another reason that I show up on Saturday mornings from 10 till noon Eastern Time so I can share with you some information and give you buzzwords. Today I'm going to share with you some information about extended warranties because I had a meeting at the service desk yesterday with a gentleman, LC, about extended warranties, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of lack of communication and a lot of uneducated and information that you need, that actually I need, because they're different companies. But all in all, that can be most beneficial, especially on today's automobile. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. When it comes to safety, there's nothing more important than your vehicle's brakes. Trust the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts to help you choose the brakes that are an exact fit for your vehicle. Brands like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermal Quiet. I use the Wagner Thermal Quiet. That's a great name, and it's a great brake pad too. O'Reilly Auto Parts has the parts and accessories you need at guaranteed low prices. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. I'm back with your calls at 888 Car Clinic.
O'Reilly.
At O'Reilly Auto Parts, you're guaranteed to get the everyday low price on the parts you need. Our guaranteed low prices ensure you're always getting our best deal. In fact, we'll match any local auto parts store's price on any like item. We have the parts you need at prices you can be sure of at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Studies show that Americans do want a choice at the pump by a 3-to-1 margin. For more information about America's fuel, drive to ethanolrfa.org. That's ethanolrfa.org. Good morning, Car Clinic listeners nationwide. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for about 45 years. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Coast. Go to nweekly.net. Look for Best of the Coast voting, click Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, then key in Bobby Likis for Best Oil Change and Best Automotive Service Shop. 4 simple steps, nweekly.net, Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, key in Bobby Likis for a Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P-Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started. 888 Car Clinic is the number for you to call. Thank you, JT, and thank you, Marty. It was Marty White, our announcer that's been around for a long time. It's the best $100 I ever spent. That's some 25 years ago. A local celebrity, really terrific individual on the radio. I called him. I said, Marty, would you do our opening and closing for us? And remember that, John? John Thielen, who was sitting in the studio as well, or actually in the control room. And Marty said, sure, I'll do that. And so I paid him. Oh, you don't owe me anything, he says. We're friends. I said, well, here's $100. And some 25 years later, every time I see him, he said, that's the best $100 you ever spent. Okay, let's get started. We're going to go to George first, and then we're going to go in Pennsylvania, and then we're going to go to Michigan and talk with Jim, and then we're going to take your calls. We have another Jim calling in, and then I have some information as we can fit it in. I don't have an agenda other than I want to share with you a couple of exchanges I had with a gentleman that came to the service desk yesterday afternoon with a problem with his automobile, and he had the extended warranty coverage, and he said, oh, it's covered, just go ahead and fix it. And I said, well, no, it doesn't work that way. Okay, George from Pennsylvania, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Yes, I have a 2005 Buick LaCrosse.
Yes, sir.
79,000 miles. I just purchased it recently, and the other day I started up and I turned the steering wheel all the way to the right, and I put it in gear, and it wouldn't move. And you could tell the transmission tried to. So I was wondering, then I straightened it out, and it was all right. I was wondering if that's normal or not.
Well, no. I mean, you turned it all the way to the right. Turning the steering wheel should have nothing to do with the transmission engaging in gear, except that the gear shift is on the steering column, and that could have a linkage. It could. If I were to put the two together, what's common? And that's what I look for, George. When I'm trying to answer and put things together through our telephone communication. So the only thing that I could think of that would be common to those two, the steering and the transmission, are the fact that the lever is mounted on the transmission column, and the fact that you straighten it back out. Now, let me understand. You had it in park, and you turned the wheel to the right, and then you took it out of park and put it in gear, and the gear shift moved, but the transmission would not go, and then you put it, then you straightened the wheel out, and then it went, or did you move the linkage back to park and straighten the wheel out? I mean,
no, I just straightened the wheel out a little, and then it started to move. But you could tell the transmission tried to move the wheels.
Well, my concern is that it just so happened that you had the wheel turned, and in the length of time that it took you to straighten the wheel out, the transmission came alive. So I don't really think that turning the wheel had anything to do. In fact, I'd be willing to bet on it that it's more inside a transmission. Now, a quick question: has this happened again?
No, I don't turn the wheel all the way like I did that day.
Oh.
I was standing still, and I.
Mm-hmm. Well, you gotta reach. you gotta go to the dark side. You gotta try it. You gotta turn the wheel and see if that affects it, because I really don't think that had anything to do with it. If it does, then it could be a linkage problem. It'd be very simple. And here's the point: you don't go there, but there may be a situation where you're parking the car, or something comes up that you don't have that option. So I would highly recommend that you try to duplicate that condition, and here's the reason why. And let's face it, if you were able to work around that one time, you should be able to work around it again. It is my theory that you won't be able to duplicate it. And therein lies the real challenge, because when you go to a local shop, and that's where I'm going to send you, there in Pennsylvania, to a local shop, for them to inspect the linkages, you have to show them what it's doing. Otherwise, it's the typical, well, here's the keys, here's my car, it's doing this, then the technician drives, well, it's okay now. I mean, which it is. So in order for you to convey exactly what your car is doing that you don't like, which is it didn't go that time when you had the wheel cut, is to duplicate that to a technician. And then you and that technician are on the same page, and the dollars you spend to correct it can be verified, because that technician knows how to make it not work, and therefore, after repair, knows how to test it to see if the repair was thorough or not. So again, let me back up. I'd like for you to duplicate that and see if you can duplicate it. If you cannot, then I recommend you have the transmission serviced, have the fluid changed. If you can duplicate it, then take it into a service shop and show them. Say, hey, let me show you what my car is doing. Any questions?
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. Take care, George. And that's a good call. It really was, folks, because that's typical of what we have in the service bays in the service shop. Is you take your car in, you talk to a service desk person, and the service desk person takes the information and gets your phone numbers and all the pertinent information, just like you go to a doctor, and then it turns that car to a technician and conveys what you told the service desk to the technician. The technician gets in the car either 10 minutes later or 2 hours later and has to duplicate and has to be on the same page as you, the owner of the car. Well, it's pretty easy if it's a flat tire, or it's pretty easy if the turn signals don't work, or the headlight's out, or the engine's misfiring. But if it's a problem that is sort of here today, gone tomorrow, it's not so easy. So that's the way you can better communicate with your local service shop. And to that end, George, what I want you to do is to go to asashop.org. And ASA is the Automotive Service Association, of which I'm a proud member and have been for years and years. And you'll find that almost all of your independent service shops, and even some dealerships and chain stores, are members of the Automotive Service Association, because there are high standards to becoming a member. And you can go to asashop.org and you can see the actual mission statement there, so that you can better understand the good news about those service shops. So that's what I would recommend, that George, and for all you folks that are tuned in across the nation, if you're trying to find a local shop and you don't have one, shame on you, but if you're new to the community, just go to asashop.org, not .com, but .org, and you could put in 5 miles, 10 miles, or 20 miles, and give you the perimeter of the service shops. But just go for the short haul, 5 miles first, and then put in your address and say, find a shop. And you'll find a shop, and then you can call those shops, talk to the owners or the service desk, and see how they communicate. See how willing they are to give you their time on the phone. And if you talk to 3 different shops, and please don't call the shop and say, how much do you charge for? That is not the way you establish a communication. Number one, you don't know what's wrong with it. Number two, they don't know what's wrong with it. And number three, which really should be number one, without proper testing, no one knows what it costs to repair anything on any car. And that's the fact. And this week, I bet we had 15 calls. If we had one that, do you do timing belts? Do I do timing belts? We perform the replacement of timing belts, yes. How much do you charge? What kind of car do you have? What's the VIN? I don't know the VIN. Well, it's like we have to have the birth certificate of the automobile. We have to know what kind of engine, what year, make, and model the car is, and the VIN has all of that information in it, and there can even be 2 different applications or 3 for the same model year car. So anytime and every time that we order a part for any of our customers' cars in our service shop, that's 45 years and running, we always have to have the VIN number, or we can't order a part. Even a spark plug, because they changed the plug, like the infamous Ford, the better idea that wasn't a better idea, with the plugs that break off. And I don't know how many of you out there have had that. I think 07, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range, they had the extended, and it was all about emissions. And what they did, folks, is that, and for you, those of you who are car people, they put a tube onto the end of the spark plug where the threads stop. And that tube was crimped onto the end of the spark plug, and it sticks into the cylinder. And then they extended the porcelain and the rod, the electrode down into the tube so they could get the fire and start the fire deeper into the chamber. I mean, after all, if you're going to start a fire, to think of a teepee. If you're going to start a fire and you had a wooden teepee or a pyramid, you would want to start the fire in the middle so it would propagate, so it would burn evenly, and that would therefore it would spread faster. And that's exactly what happens in a combustion chamber if you can get the spark in the center of the chamber. Well, that's easier said than done. And that's why Ford made this spark plug, and that helped them pass emissions because it was more efficient. Except that tube that's exposed to the combustion chamber corroded with carbon and byproducts of a combustion chamber, so that when you unscrewed the spark plug, the tube had to pull its way out of a hole that was the size of the tube. Well, the tube had carbon on it, and when you unscrewed the plug, that end of the plug broke off and stuck in the cylinder. Bad news. Good news when I come back at 888 Car Clinic. We have Jim from Detroit, and then your calls at 888 Car Clinic. This Tire Maintenance Minute is brought to you by General Tire and the G-Max AS03, the ultra-high-performance all-season tire. The G-Max AS03 features a V-shaped pattern with aqua-cleave groove elements that help channel and direct water out of the tread for excellent resistance to hydroplaning. Thoughts of nitrogen probably take you back to high school chemistry. But did you know nitrogen-filled tires offer benefits their air-filled counterparts can't? Nitrogen-filled tires maintain a more constant pressure, as pure nitrogen is not as affected by ambient air temperature swings. Constant pressure means better handling, less tire wear, and increased fuel economy. Drawbacks? Not every repair shop has nitrogen available. Another consideration is price. While air is free, nitrogen typically costs between $3 and $10 per tire. Drive to GeneralTire.com to learn more about the G-Max AS03 featuring patented interlocking 3D sipe technology. The tread blocks actually work together to improve handling and reduce heat for increased tread life. Learn more at GeneralTire.com. Folks, we're testing an Intune i2 performance programmer from Diablo Sport, and we'll share feedback and results over the next few months. First is ease of installation. Directions were clear and the setup was easy. The Intune i2 is preloaded with dyno and street-tested performance programs developed specifically for your car or truck, ensuring optimal power and drivability gains. From there, you can then customize a tune tailored to your own performance needs. What a great way to boost power without even popping the hood. The Diablo Sport Intune i2 has a fantastic look and now features the latest generation ARM processor for a higher resolution screen and an exceptionally responsive touchpad. You can update your i2 software on virtually any computer. Windows, Mac, Linux, and update times are fast. Even the large updates take no more than 5 minutes. I'll report more to you about the Intune i2 in the coming weeks. In the meantime, check out the i2 for yourself at DiabloSport.com. That's DiabloSport.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hon, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
I'm 98.
Higher.
Higher at 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Okay, it's Linux. Not Linux. It's Linux. operating software. Diablo Sport. I got to say, we installed that tune kit in a 2015 EcoBoost V6 twin-turbo Ford F-150 that belongs to the father of our general manager, Brendan Beasley, at Car Clinic Service Pre-Repair. And now that he's driven it for about 2 weeks, he's in love with it. And I will tell you, the gas mileage is about the same, which surprises me because now he's heavier footed than he was before. But the vehicle flies. It really runs well. So if you've got a Ford, a Chevy, a Dodge, Diablo Sport makes a heck of a product for you that literally, we just plugged this in and followed the directions. It was so simple. And, even you can do it. I mean, literally, and it was fun. And it asks you, do you want to change the gear ratio or the tire size? No. Do you run premium fuel? Yes. Do you want? And you can tune it in several different ways. So I can't wait to get the report back from Brendan's dad to find out what his thoughts are about that, and then we're going to tweak it again, and then we're going to download new software and tweak it again. That's what I really like about it, because you can continue to play with it, just like your computer. And today's cars, folks, are that way. You have to, and I'll get into this a little bit later in the program if you'd like, and if I have time. The industry is going to an updated software before you can test for drivability issues. That's the latest information. You're not going to like this, but it's the way it is. I'll tell you about it a little bit later. Right now, we've got Jim from Detroit on the phone. Jim, welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. How you doing today, sir?
Well, I'm real good because I'm right on cue today. No hesitation, we're here.
Hey, you're always on cue. So let's talk about car stuff.
Okay, let's talk about car stuff. Even though it's a rehash of one of the articles I had a few weeks back, there's new information that 45 million cars from various car dealers and car manufacturers are still not being responded to by the drivers who bought the cars, and potential accidents could occur even if they notify them and offer them a bonus, gift certificate for money or something like that. It's hard to track them when some of them buy a car 1 year, sell it the second, and then that person sells it again. It's hard to track the car.
It's ironic that you should mention this, Jim, because just yesterday we had a lady that called, and she was, and Miss Jan, you remember this, literally she was stranded at the post office with her car, and she had it into the dealer earlier, and they put a new airbag, and it was what recalled. She hadn't driven a car in 2 months, and that was one of the problems. And it was a Honda car. So they replaced the airbag, they charged the battery, and they gave her a car to drive, which she said was really kind of strange, Bobby. She said, I was driving this car that was totally different from my SUV, and now I had to get back in my SUV, so I'm not sure that was a good idea. So a lot of people may end up trading their car, but nonetheless, she called us, and Brennan went over and rescued her, brought her back in. We put a battery in it. We tested the charging system, and sure enough, it was a battery. And they had charged the battery, and the battery was just bad. But I wondered just how many people, and this was the Dakota, airbag debacle, where all those millions of cars have airbag. So you're right. I just wonder how many actual repairs are made, and if you're the manufacturer and you're responsible for the repair, and you're the dealer and you're charged with repairing the automobile, and you have the parts and the technicians there, you can't force people to bring their cars in. So, folks, the lesson really falls, you are totally responsible for your automobile. And Jim, that's something that I think we need to think more about, being responsible for our own actions. And don't just say, well, it's somebody else's fault. True, it was a bad airbag. But now they're stepping up, they're replacing the airbag. So everyone can go to safercar.gov and check for see if their car is in that queue. What else did you bring us, sir?
Okay, Bobby, other than that, the idea now I'm going to talk slightly political about the NAFTA thing between Hillary and Trump as well.
Okay.
Now, both of them want NAFTA to rework their agreements and try to keep businesses here in America. Yet you can't force a company to do it. Ford has already expanded overseas. I had an article on the internet where GM has expanded quite heavily overseas.
Right.
And I hope the capital still stays in Michigan so I can see my son often. Let's put it that way.
There you go.
I mean, but seriously, what are you going to do at both ends and tell the dealer, the car manufacturer, you can't have a thing out of our country or we're going to charge you a surtax so much we'll eat up some of your profit. How is this going to come about? What's your reaction?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I wish that I did, and because anything that I came up with would just be an idea, but it wouldn't be a solid. I do know that the CEO of Fiat Chrysler and Marchione Sergio, who is CEO of more than one or two companies. I mean, this man literally gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning and goes in, and he doesn't. His office is not the ivory tower, literally. He is. I have much respect for him, and he's made the announcement that they're going to remove all car building from stop car making in the United States by 2017. And they're going to take their factories, existing factories, where they are producing the 200 Chrysler, which, quite candidly, I think it bombed. And I don't know that it bombed, but obviously the sales are not like the Ram and the other trucks that are making the Jeep and the Ram. So they're going to take all their existing facilities and produce more of the vehicles, the Jeep and the Ram, so they can outsource. And I say outsource, that's probably not correct. No, it's not. I'll scratch that. They're going to move their mass production facility or build one in Mexico, would make the cars in Mexico where the labor's cheaper, and they're going to make the Ram trucks and the Jeeps in the United States because they need to get their profit in the same line as GM, which I understand is 12.1% is what GM is touting as far as their profit, and that's per car. And don't quote me on the per car side, but the 12.1. And I just read this information yesterday, and I think it's very interesting to see what one manufacturer is doing, and they're trying to compete with each other. Now, fast forward or back up, it depends on which side of the street you're on, to the political arena. You cannot dictate, but you can make it difficult. And you're right. If the government says that, okay, we're going to charge you a tariff on automobiles that are made in other countries, will that force manufacturers? I mean, it negates the reason for going to Mexico. I get that. But I don't know if we're a free society, we can't be. I mean, look at Walmart. How many items? And if you remember, years and years ago, Walmart was made in USA, and that's been years ago. And now, I doubt there are many things that are made in USA that you can buy at Walmart because they're all about discount wholesale. So it's, doesn't our society demand the lowest price?
Yeah, we do demand the lowest price. And we wouldn't get it if we didn't have, let's say, our computer and some of the cars we want that are out of America, we couldn't afford them if they wouldn't send them here with a fair price. But I think the object is we don't feel they're letting us have a fair price for cars overseas in many cases.
Well, that's a fact. Now you're talking a whole different game because we take anything and ship it overseas and we pay. I mean, that's a given. That's really. I'm glad that Victor from Washington is not on the line with you because you and Victor would take over the whole show talking about politics and cars. But literally, Jim, I am anxious to see what the next steps will be. Here's the challenge that as I see it. If we set a policy, and then someone comes along and changes that policy, then all of the momentum that's gained from having that policy, and I'm speaking now of renewable fuels and alternative energies, all the investments that people want to invest in new technologies, it is turned off or turned south or put a cold shower, if you will, because now what was an incentive to invest in that industry has changed, and they take the incentive away. So just like and a lot of folks think that ethanol is subsidized. The subsidy for ethanol, which never was for ethanol, it was for the farmers, which it was actually for the oil manufacturers. The oil companies got 45 cents a gallon subsidy.
which was an incentive for them to blend ethanol in their fuels. That didn't go to the farmers, but in December of 2011, that ended. So there is no subsidy whatsoever now, while we still do subsidize gasoline. And what else do you have, sir?
Okay, in Pennsylvania, speaking of alternative fuels, in the last year they've been using natural gas to power big trucks that transport goods across Pennsylvania. In the first year, it's been a great saving in that alone. I mean, it's an alternative fuel. You can still get it installed in your car, natural gas, but it takes up trunk space, and that's, I think, one of the things that backs off people from doing it.
Well, it does, and of course, GM and Chrysler make vehicles from the factory, and Ford. They've all tried to dabble in that dual fuel, and where you have the car, and you can buy a car today. I'm not sure which line now you can actually order it, because I haven't had the need to go there. But you can buy a car today that can run on gasoline or on CNG, compressed natural gas. The challenge is you have to have 2 tanks. You have to have 2 of almost everything. So there's an extra price. And in Canada, it's common to upgrade or change a car over the injection system and use the compressed natural gas. And the problem is that if you take an American car and change it over or update it or put the kit on, you're going to spend $6,000-$7,000. And in today's prices of gasoline, I've got it right here, $2.18. It doesn't. The numbers don't work. Again, the numbers don't work. So unless $5 a gallon gasoline drives a lot of business toward alternative fuels, because it's a rude awakening, and since the worm has turned, which is in part due to renewable fuels and the renewable fuel standard, since the worm has turned, now gasoline has come down. And a lot of people, think, well, that's because we're making our own gas and we're drilling more wells. In part, that's true. But also, we've reduced our dependence on foreign oil from 60% to 25%, and that 25% would have been 32% had it not been for the E10, the ethanol blends that go into gasoline. Jim, stay right there. I know you got one more item. We're going to come back, and folks, take your calls at 888 Car Clinic. Whether driving to work or for sport, your vehicle needs to perform, often in an instant. Stant brings original equipment expertise to their line of quality aftermarket products. Today's Instant Product Spotlight is on Stant thermostats. Proactive trumps reactive in both the human and automotive bodies. So when replacing your vehicle's coolant, proactive vehicular health calls for a new thermostat. Reach for the thermostat professional installers prefer, Stant. Just hold one. You'll feel the difference. Stant's premium-grade USA-made Superstat thermostat has a heavier gauge stainless steel housing and larger heat motor for better temperature control. And Superstat's heavy-duty springs help return it to a closed position to prevent cold running. Stant's patented weir valve construction gets coolant flowing as the thermostat starts to open, helping the engine get to peak operating temperature quicker. And remember, Superstat thermostats come with a limited lifetime warranty. Drive to stant.com for more or find them on Facebook.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. In 2011, ethanol use reduced tailpipe CO2 equivalent emissions by 25.3 metric tons. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Good morning, Car Clinic listeners nationwide. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for about 45 years. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Coast. Go to nweekly.net. Look for Best of the Coast voting, click Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, then key in Bobby Likis for Best Oil Change and Best Automotive Service Shop. 4 simple steps, nweekly.net, Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, key in Bobby Likis for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I invite you to call if you have a question about your automobile, or you got maybe a car that's in a shop and you're going to spend a couple $1,000s on it, and you're trying to decide whether to bite that bullet or bite an even larger one and trade the car. So 888 Car Clinic is the number for you to dial, 888-227-2546. We're talking with Jim, and Jim, thanks for sticking through the break there. We're talking about the price of gasoline, and we're also talking about how the government may shift, regardless of who wins the presidency, with regard to outsourcing jobs or to penalizing car makers for making their cars out of the states. Is that the brunt of it, Jim?
Exactly, Bob. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. Well, what's your gut? What are your thoughts?
My guess is that some of them are going to defy it right now before they get the new president in, but that doesn't mean they couldn't be hit with a penalty, and it hasn't been decided whether it's going to be 10% or 35%. And that's still an open book. You hit them with 35, and that's not going to be pleasant. You need people in the local area to buy the cars. Who's the greatest endorser of a car being built? The guy that makes it. When he's driving a car and you see it on the road, you want one too.
Sure. Well, I think it will be interesting. Here's the challenge as I see it, and then we'll move on to another subject. The challenge that I see is that the government changes directions. And so what was good yesterday is no longer good today, or what was a direction yesterday is a different direction today. And I know that we can't just live in the past and keep everything status quo. I'm not saying that. But the bottom line is, when we put laws in place, and the EPA is a good example. The EPA in 2010 came out with a rule that established stringent standards for diesel trucks, and I can share that information with you, and I will a little bit later in the program. And they reduced the sulfur from low sulfur to ULSD, which is ultra low sulfur in the diesel. And so that was made, and that rule was made so that we could have cleaner air, and that stuck. And here we are 6 years later, and now the percentages of trucks that are on the road that pollute has dropped drastically. And I'll just give you a quick overview. 41% of the Class 3 through 8 U.S. diesel vehicles in operation are near zero emissions with the new technology. 41%. So those are the that's that dirty stuff that comes out of a diesel motor that you see you see it less and less and less, because the fuel is cleaner and the engines have scrubbers on them. They do. They have exhaust scrubbers. They have selective catalyst on them, and that's all a cost. But you know what? When you think about life and you think about lung cancer, where's the cost come in? So we have to, if we're the society that is the best on the planet, we have to practice what we preach, and we have to go by those rules, and we have to leave things alone that are working. If something's not working, fix it. But if something is working, leave it alone.
I agree with you completely. Now, GM is coming up with, here's the new idea of a new Buick. And when you take a look at the picture of it on the internet, it is a sharp car. It's an eye catcher. Many people buy a car because of the style of it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the prices are going to drop again. It's been projected recently. The gas will again go back to $1 a gallon. And if that be true, more people are going to continue with gas-driven cars. This new Buick LaCrosse, it's just a gorgeous car. The taillights are different. The V6 engine is outstanding. And this is what people buy cars for, how they fit into them physically and how it looks to them. I don't see, though, why people, unless they're in a business where they can write it off for their business purposes, sell a car every year, because you lose so much on the car by getting rid of it the first year.
Oh, no question.
I would say at least keep it 3 years minimum, and then you have a better deal of getting what you paid for it.
I agree, Jim. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today, and as always, appreciate the update and the information. And we shall see exactly in November, which is just around the corner now. We'll see what changes come along, and it'll be interesting. I will say this in closing, and I'll go out on a limb, which is fine.
Don't let the limb fall.
Well, if it falls, it just falls. But the bottom line is, gasoline is $2.18 national average. Gasoline is lower today than it was last week, same time. It's lower priced today than it was at the same time last year in all 10 regions. And I get copies from the government industry and the fueling industry every week, and reports, and the highest price on gasoline is $2.67 on the West Coast. And so what's the point? I think it's interesting that when alternative fuels and renewable energies came on the scene and became proven that they were cleaner and that engines can use the high octane properties of these fuels, and yes, including ethanol, I think it's really ironic that all of a sudden gasoline has dropped out of the sky as far as the price goes. So I sincerely believe that we'll see for the next 8 years low prices of gasoline, and to that end, that's another reason that Fiat Chrysler is going to be making more Jeeps and more Rams in the States. That's all they're going to make in all the facilities. Why? Because people are going to buy them because gas is cheap. And what does that do? It's a very subtle way, unless you are really tuned into it, to force EV cars off the road, which happened years ago. It's a very subtle way to break the backs of the ethanol producers, because they cut the profit down on that business model. And that business model is based on corn, not the corn we eat, but the bushels of corn that are grown, the field corn that is used to blend with fuels. And so there's a lot of, and I don't have a hidden agenda, or I'm not against big oil or profit. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in business and have been for 45 years. But I will say that I find it very interesting that if you look at history with Henry Ford and Sir Harry Ricardo and Charles Kettering and James Midgley, and who invented tetraethyl lead and the poisonous effect of lead, and now benzene, and there's papers you can read on benzene, that how dangerous that stuff is, and it's still in gasoline. So there's no question that gasoline is a highly explosive, deadly chemical. There are over 1,000 chemicals in gasoline, and they burn some of them in 1/1000th of a second. The challenge is when they burn, depending on the structure of the gasoline and the chemical makeup, they produce byproducts that affect the burn rate of other products in there. So every time you blend gasoline, and I don't mean just blend it with ethanol, I'm talking about the blend the toluenes and the benzenes and the other chemicals that go into gasoline, that they're not clean. It's not clean air. And so as a result, that's the old history is back now the same way it was in the 20s. And in fact, if you just look at the 20s, you'll see that the tax on ethanol was $2 a gallon in the 20s. $2? Really? And the tax on kerosene was 10 cents a gallon.
Big difference. And there's still, even if you stated briefly that we're going to have more interest in non-electric cars,
sure,
the gas prices dropping down, there's still more research shown that there can be even more improvements made for gasoline engines.
Well, and you're seeing that every day, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Always great to talk with you. Take care. See you next week.
Okay, bye.
And folks, it is very interesting. Let's talk about car repair. And I mentioned earlier about extended warranties. Had a conversation yesterday with a gentleman that came by, walked up to the service desk, pulled out 2 brochures, and that had a 48,000 mile coverage that was tacked on to his his regular warranty. So he had warranty up to 120,000 miles on his vehicle. He had been to a local parts store, and they read a code. Now they read a code. Anybody can read a code in a computer. So just to be clear here, to read a code is about as simple as reading a telephone number off of a web page. To get beyond the gatekeeper in the architecture of the software of a car and to understand what's causing that code to show is a whole different story. So when you take your car into a service shop and they charge you, let's say $115 to read the code and get into the architecture, they're not charging you to read the code. They're charging you to go in beyond the gatekeeper, which is the electronic gatekeeper that stops those non-professionals from getting into the architecture. Why? Because when you get into the architecture, you can control the car. And you've heard about jailbreaking the cars and phones and what have you. Well, you can get into the car's architecture. In order to test circuits like evap systems and suspension systems and ABS systems and all the systems that are safety items on your automobile, as a shop, we have to get beyond the gatekeeper. In order to do that, we have scanners that cost up to $10,000. Plus the software is $1,500 a year to upgrade. And it upgrades every year. It's a never-ending process that is very difficult to maintain for an independent service shop. I'll just put it that way. And some people would say, "Oh, that's the dealers. They're doing that to force the people back to their shops." Well, maybe. I don't see it that way. I see it as an improved vehicle that has more electronics, and when you have more electronics, you have more updates. And so to that end, and I'll get back to the extended warranty in just a minute, to that end, the updates will be part of the way we do business going forward. Now, what does that mean? It means that instead of paying $115 for an independent to go into the architecture and tell you what the test shows that might be wrong that's making that light come on, the first thing that has to be done is the car's computer has to be updated. And that costs $125. So are you going to be, think about it, if you go to a service shop, are you going to be willing to pay $125 to have your car's software updated with no assurance that that has anything to do with what your problem is? Would you? And then for $25 for every module thereafter? And I'm going to say that's a hard sale. But that's the way the industry is going. And when you think about it, with your computer, we were just talking this morning with the XP is no longer serviced. And we had some challenges with the computer firing up before the show today. And the bottom line is they don't service those cars because they're old. They don't service those computers, those systems, because they're old systems and they're outdated. So your car that is newer or not, newer, what's newer? 2005 up, 2010 up, that automobile will have to have its software updated before it can be diagnosed or tested. Why? Because the updated software might fix the problem. And you have to update the software before you can go into the computer to install a new program or an accessory or whatever. So it's a very interesting. Now, let's talk about the extended warranty. So the gentleman comes in and he says, "Here's my car. This is covered, and I've got this code, and the code says number 4 spark plug is bad, which indicates that number 4 coil is not working." And we looked at his. So I read all in the small print. I read his extended warranty, and sure enough, it had down there coils that were covered. But what he didn't understand is that the test to determine if that coil is indeed bad was not. The diagnostics are not covered by your extended warranty. So for you to know, it's great to have an extended warranty, and I recommend it. but it's up to you to understand what is covered. It's not voodoo or black magic, and it's not rocket science, and there's no plot to take your money and not fix your car. But there are certain responsibilities, and it's up to you to know that. And that's why it's important that you tune in to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, because I can share that information with you, because we deal with that every day. Well, not every day, but we deal with it every month for sure. And I say deal with it, we deal with the extended warranty companies that are like HMOs in a way, because they pay X amount of the repair for labor and for parts. They don't pay to diagnose it. So if you've got an engine that's overheating, it's got a gasket, we have to test the system to see if it has a blown head gasket. You pay for that test. Now, if the gasket's covered, hey, the aftermarket company will pay for it. So that's where all the communication comes in. That's what I love about Car Clinic and doing this program, because I can share with you information that we learn some 50, 60 hours every week in a service shop, and I bring it to this program every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time. So it's great for me. Number one, it keeps me on my toes. Number two, it's great because I get information and thank yous from people all over the nation saying, thank you, you saved me money, you saved me relief, heartburn. And for me, heartburn is where you take your car in and you don't know anything about anything except that they want $1,000 to fix your car. And when you leave there, you don't know what they did except they got $1,000 and your car runs better, you hope. Well, that doesn't have to be that way. All the more reason you should tune in to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. 888-227-2546. We have another great hour coming up, and I have information about actually General Tire. They have a new grabber tire that's called the 3 in X3. I'll tell you about that at the second hour. Bobby Likis. Likis, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
You're moving fast and you don't want anything to slow you down, especially an unreliable battery. Be sure the next time your car needs a new battery, you choose one with PowerFrame grid technology inside. It's not only 66% more durable than other grid designs, it's manufactured with the latest and most sustainable processes. Look for PowerFrame on the outside for true strength on the inside. Visit PowerFrame.com to find a retailer near you. That's PowerFrame.com. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Myth is that ethanol production dramatically increases food prices. Fact is that experts from the USDA, World Bank, academia, and independent consultants all note that a complex range of factors influence food prices, including supply chain costs, weather, and oil prices. I'm Bobby Likis with 20 facts about ethanol, brought to you by the Renewable Fuels Association.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with like new condition lemals. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Count down to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll-free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And thank you, Marty White. Also, we've opened up the 888 Car Clinic number as well at 888-227-2546. We have both of those numbers that ring through to Miss Jan, who will take your call, put you in the queue, and I will put you on the air. So if you have a car question, or if you have information, you need information about the industry, or new cars, or old cars, or used cars, I'm your, just consider me your personal car consultant. After some 45 years in the automotive industry and building rear engine dragster racing engines, and following renewable fuels, and having thousands of conversations and reading thousands of white papers. I'm a big white paper fan. I love the industry, and I love to share with you information that I've gleaned from that experience. Not always right, but I'm certainly willing to go out on a limb and share with you the information that I learned. If I'm not, we'll find out shortly by digging into a little deeper. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by Stant Corporation, makers of the Super Stant. Reach for the thermostat professional installers prefer. Learn more about the Super Stant and Stant's entire collection of aftermarket caps and thermostats at stant.com. When I come back, your calls, 888-227-2546. I'm Bobby Likis. Let's start off and let's go. Stant is the expert when it comes to radiator caps, thermostats, and fuel caps, supplying manufacturers as far back as Henry Ford's Model A. You can trust that Stant fuel caps will deliver OE performance. A leaking fuel cap is more than just the pain of a check engine light. Evaporating fuel costs money. Stant fuel caps are built so well, they can even seal with part of the cap broken away, helping to keep you safe. Stant also offers locking fuel caps. Drive to Stant.com or your local retailer today. That's Stant.com.
If you're familiar with the cultivated section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the cultivated section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemurs. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Your life demands a tire that provides durability, comfort, and performance, and that's what General Tire delivers for you. From the all-season grip of the Grabber UHP to the comfort and on-road manners of the Grabber HTS to the durability and off-road traction of the Grabber AT2, General has a tire that will help get you where you need to go. So let us take you on the next big adventure. Tweet us photos at General Tire, hashtag anywhere is possible, because with General Tire, anywhere is possible.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at lendingtree.com.
Hospice isn't a place, it's a face. And Regency Hospice delivers more faces to you and your loved one when life matters most. Faces of nurses, nursing assistants, social workers, and chaplains. Regency's skilled, compassionate professionals deliver comfort and individualized care. When that time of life comes to you, Regency Hospice will be there for you. Go to regencyhospice.com for more, including Hospice for Heroes Veterans Recognition Program.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Let me give you a rundown of how it's going to go. We're going to go to Washington first, and we're going to talk with Victor, and he has some questions about diesels. I have some information about diesel technology from the Diesel Technology Forum, courtesy of Steve Hansen, that I will share with you about clean diesels and the cleaner air. We have Jim that has a Grand Marquis, and Greg who has a Toyota with questions. And Miss Jan will take your questions to put your in the queue, and at the 888 Car Clinic, take your calls and put you in the queue, and I will put you on the air. We also expect James Bell, who is the Director of Corporate Communications with Kia, to call in, and we're going to have him on the air, either the second segment or the third segment, depending on when Miss Jan can get him up on the phone there. But in the meantime, I want to share with you, and I mentioned this just on the outbreak of the last hour, General Tire's got a new tire coming out. It's not out yet, but it's called the Grabber X3. And folks, it's an aggressive mud terrain tire. And get this, the 3 in X3 stands for, number 1, extreme performance in mud with engineered tread. Number 2, extreme performance in dirt with superior grip. And number 3, extreme performance on rock with breakthrough cut resistance. It's unbelievable that they can make a tire that has resistance to being cut on rocks, because there's a lot of pressure there. And General Tire is launching the new tire this fall, the Grabber X3, and they're also sponsoring something called Expedition Overland, a reality-based web series that follows an expedition crew of overlanders and their outfitted vehicles through some of the most remote places of North and Central America, which includes North Carolina, I'm sure. They're actually testing the tires on some of the adventures, and they're going to post, as they do, the information. It's a story that might be worth following. So check it out, Expedition Overland, and the Grabber X3, which is extreme performance in mud, dirt, and on rock. For more information, go to generaltire.com. And for more information, we're going to go to Washington, as I promised. Victor, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Yeah, hi, Bobby.
Hi, sir.
We were talking about coking on valves here last week. How come the diesel valves don't coke? That's basically the same. Is it less heat or what?
Well, we have serious issues with diesels, and especially the Ford diesels, because now with the EGR systems, there's a roughly a $900 cleaning procedure that you have to perform on the Ford diesels in order to make those engines continue to run correctly. And so, and why? Because the exhaust of those engines is brought back in, EGR, exhaust gas recirculation. And so the clean air, and I mentioned this earlier about the diesel forums and the diesel technology forum, the cleaner air, the exhaust is put back into the engine, and of course when you do, you're mixing the crankcase oil, the vapors from the crankcase, and you're mixing exhaust particles. And so there is a serious, and we have pictures. If you go to Twitter.com or Pinterest, go to Pinterest.com and look at some of our boards there in the shop with Bobby Likis, and we have 20 boards, and there are a lot of pictures there. You can find pictures of diesels and what have you. So there are some serious coking issues that street cars have. Now, semis, I don't know about semis, and I don't know that they have the same. Well, they do have the same, because
information that I have, up to 41% of the Class 3 through 8 U.S. diesel vehicles in operation are near zero emissions.
Yeah, I run them a lot, truck diesels and the big diesels, and they don't. We never had any problem at all. Anyway, in the older engines, there was no problem at all.
Well,
that I know of, we're on them, hundreds of thousands of miles. We have to overhaul them.
Well,
yeah,
you're right. You're right as far as that. But here's what happened: in December of 2000, EPA promulgated a rule that established stringent standards designed to reduce emissions from the very trucks that you're talking about, trucks and buses, up to 95%, and to cut the allowable levels of the sulfur in diesel fuel by 97% by 2010. Now, they did this in 2000. And so in order to achieve those standards, Victor, the new clean diesel system had to have efficient engines and combustion systems that utilized advanced fuel injection and turbocharging and engine management strategies. And they all couple that with emissions controls and after-treatment technologies, including the particulate filters that I talked about and selective catalytic reduction, SCR, systems, all running on ultra-low sulfur diesel. And get this, the U.S. trucking fleet transitioning to newer technology clean diesels is up from 37% in 2015, Indiana 61%, Utah 54%, and Oklahoma 53% have the highest overall percentage. California has the lowest overall percentage, and yet they have many updates and many standards on clean air. So when you have to make sure that we don't breathe particulate matter that comes out the tailpipe, you have to have scrubbers, and you have to put some of that back in the combustion chamber, and that ends up polluting the engine. So there is a problem on the street cars, street trucks, the F-250 Fords, and more so on the Fords, I think, than at least in our shop, than any other make of diesel. And I don't know particularly why that is. Maybe Ford went overboard on their emissions controls, but we know that Volkswagen didn't go overboard on theirs. And did you hear about Volkswagen that as of 2019 will stop importing diesels to the States?
Yeah. Hey, I'd like to say one thing about sending our jobs or car manufacturing out.
Yes, sir.
See, every time we can't compete because our prices are too high here compared with the foreign goods coming in,
yes,
and we lose our jobs, those people go on welfare. Anytime you go on welfare, the government has to spend more money. That means higher taxes. Every time they raise the taxes, the wages to the wage earner still working has to go up because their taxes went up, and also the taxes on the business go up. Then we have to charge even more, which makes us less competitive. So every time we lose a job, we become even less competitive here, and more jobs go out, and more of the companies leave the country. So that we'll go broke because the government eventually, the debt will be so big, all the taxes won't pay the interest on that, even though they've dropped the interest now down to 1% or 1.5% or practically nothing, because basically now our government can't pay the old interest of 4 or 5%, which our old people used to live on. Now the old people have to go on welfare because they don't have the interest money on their savings, so then the government has to borrow even more, raise the taxes even more, make us less competitive. So it's like a snowball. Our nation is going broke, and then our workers lose their skills. We won't be able to do things anymore, and we'll be a bunch of stupid welfare people, and the government will go broke and we'll go broke. That's where we're going. We have to put in tariffs so that anything that comes in here gives our business an edge. Anything produced here is going to be more competitive for people to buy than the foreign stuff coming in. And then those tariffs that come in, the government's going to have to use that money to prop up our welfare people so they can buy the more expensive goods. Otherwise, we're going to go into a third world nation.
Well, that doesn't sound like good news to me.
Well, isn't that true, though? The facts are facts.
Well, you are, and you're right there. So you believe that that tariffs is part of the solution?
Well, it's the only solution. Otherwise, you're not competitive. See, we have a free market to the point that the people go and you purchase what you want to purchase. Okay,
let me ask a question, Victor. And I know, Greg, stay right there. I'm going to come to you soon, but let me ask a question. Why is everyone, and I shouldn't generalize this, why are so many Americans so concentrated on price You can't believe that if I offered deals on everything, I'd have more cars in my shop, and I can't do that because I can't pay my employees, and I can't keep good technicians unless I pay them. And so that industry in itself is not growing, it's reducing. And there will be, you talk about an epidemic, there's the latest data that I have is that for every 5 technicians leaving the industry, only 1 technician is coming in. Now, I do not have the source of that information, so it's not verifiable. But I'm going to tell you that I believe that somewhere in that vicinity, I believe that 5 to 2 or 2 to 5 is the real number. So it just stands to reason that the real problem is going to be in the automotive service world, of which I do know a lot about, is that people are so concentrated on how much. And for me, it should be what's good for the patient. What does the car need in order to do the job, to make the job outlast the repair bill? If you can spend X amount on an automobile, and if you can drive that and amortize that repair over a year or 2 or 3 or 100,000 miles, then it paid for itself.
Well, you see, people.
But that's not the way people think. So I'm at a loss, and I've been in the business for 45 years, and you're in my hot spot now. Stay right there, Victor. I want to hear what you have to say. Greg, you stay right there, and folks, don't you touch that dial. We're on a roll here. Because this is real. This is real. This is what's happening today. Stay tuned. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Ethanol produced from grain sorghum would help meet the federal goal of 36 billion gallons of renewable fuels per year by 2022. Drive to ethanolrfa.org for more. Good morning, Car Clinic listeners nationwide. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for about 45 years. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Coast. Go to nweekly.net. Look for Best of the Coast voting, click Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, then key in Bobby Likis for Best Oil Change and Best Automotive Service Shop. 4 simple steps, nweekly.net, Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, key in Bobby Likis for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence. How can you improve battery performance? Make sure your next battery has Power Frame Grid technology, a more advanced kind of positive grid technology that's designed to combat the common causes of premature battery failure. Power Frame Grid technology is formed from a single sheet of precisely rolled and stamped metal. This patented manufacturing process makes the battery more resistant to corrosion. Look for the Power Frame logo on the outside of your next battery. It means true strength on the inside. Visit powerframe.com to find a retailer near you. Hospice isn't a place, it's a face. And Regency Hospice delivers more faces to you and your loved one when life matters most. Faces of nurses, nursing assistants, social workers, and chaplains. Regency's skilled, compassionate professionals deliver comfort and individualized care. When that time of life comes to you, Regency Hospice will be there for you. Go to regencyhospice.com for more, including Hospice for Heroes Veterans Recognition Program.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip
from Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you join us today. A very interesting show. It gets more and more interesting as life goes on because the industry changes. And I share with you information that, sometimes may sound like a rant, but it's really not. It's what we're in the trenches every week, some 50 or 60 hours. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by General Tire and the G-Max AS03, offering technologically, that's easy for you to say. Anyway, their advanced features like the replacement tire monitor, alerting drivers of tread wear condition and indicates to the driver when the tires need to be replaced. And I'll tell you, it's really way cool. It is etched into the tread of the tire and says replacement tire. And then as that wears out, it's a monitor, and then the tread depth wears it down to 30 seconds. It says replace tire. It's really cool. It's generaltire.com. Go to General Tire for more. Victor, we're talking about the industry, and we're talking about diesels as well, but also we're talking about the industry and where the industry is, and then where the government is with regard to tariffs and charging for items that come in. So my question to you is, aren't we, as a society, supporting the lowest price?
Well, the thing of it is, see, we have so many people on welfare now, and welfare is a survival amount of money. The government has so many people on welfare, they can't pay their bills now. They're borrowing like crazy. We're broke, and so they're not going to pay the welfare people enough money to have enough money to buy more expensive things. So the people that are on just survival money, they look for anything cheap. And so, and they have to drive cars. So when they come into your place and others, they are not able financially, and it's going to get worse, to pay what you have to pay your workers. Because, see, our expense of living, like I just cited before, to taxes, most of our expenses are taxes. And it goes up. My taxes go up every year, on like my property tax and so forth. And yours probably does too. And so we're broke, and we're going broker, and the only reason that we survive is because the foreigners can take those U.S. dollars and come in here and buy up the United States. They bought a great big hog business just lately, and buying up farmland, buying up timberland. They use a U.S. front organization, so you don't know the foreigners are doing it. And as long as they can keep buying up America and making fools out of us, and our people get dumber and less money. Our people are very poor. They don't have savings, so when they old age and so forth. I mean, it's a total destruction of the United States. Now, if we bring in tariffs, where a business, any business that sets up in here, if the government guarantees that they can't be undersold, that we're going to have competition between U.S. businesses, then they know that if they invest here and spend their money and build factories, they know that at least ways they're going to have the U.S. market. And we're basically and we have to use our own market, because there's no other country in the world that has such a high cost of living. And so if we're not going to live like a bunch of slaves with a survival income on which won't last, that won't even last. When our money collapses, because that's what's going to happen when we can't pay the interest on the debt. Our money, that time our money will collapse. We'll go into a total dictatorial. The government will have to take care of everybody, and they'll have to, rather than giving you money, they'll give you food and a place to sleep and some work to try to keep the economy going, which it's never worked. Russia tried it, and China tried it, and until they started getting our money, China was a basket case. As soon as the global business started going over there and using slave labor and selling back in here, and we've sent $7 trillion out of the country since 1994 on a trade deficit. And it takes $1 trillion of money in circulation to operate our economy. We've gone broke 7 times, and all our money would have left the country, and our economy would have come to a screeching halt, because we had just plain run out of money if it wasn't for the fact our government keeps borrowing and pumping it back in. That's how critical this thing is. But as long as the people get enough money to go buy in the grocery store and buy the cheap foreign stuff coming in from the government and so forth, they aren't educated enough, and they don't study enough, and they don't look to the future. They look to a six-pack in a ball game, or get their next shot on dope or something. A lot of people on dope now, they claim, or else Mexico wouldn't be shipping it all in here and making billions of dollars. So the United States is becoming a basket case.
Well,
So but we can change it if we go back to the old 10 Commandments, get back on the Bible, and quit lying, cheating, stealing. That's what our government is. Well, according to God's law, we have a illegal government. If you look at the 10 Commandments. But of course, when you get away from those standards, like we don't have any standards now. They say you have your truth, I have my truth, and it don't make any difference if they contradict each other. It's all truth. Now, I mean, that's what they tell you in schools.
That part, it hits a spot with me. Hey, Victor, I really appreciate it. We have to move on, but I really appreciate your input, and I value your insight as well. And I look forward to a solution that perhaps will come up in November, at least part of it. We'll see. I thank you very much. And now let's go to Bob. Bob, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thanks for holding. And then I'm going to Greg. Thank you, Greg, for holding. Bob, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Bobby, I've talked to you in the past. I'm local here to where you're at.
Yep.
One of the things that hasn't been addressed, have the auto industry looked at combusting the oil vapors that are coming off of the crankcase recirculation before they inject it in the carburetor to eliminate the carbon? You know what it is. If they had a small combustor, I mean, they've got the technology, and burn up the oils that are settling on the back of the intake valves over time before they get there. Wouldn't that kind of solve that problem, or at least extend it?
Well, yes, I see where you're going, and I would say absolutely you're spot on. The challenge is you want to remove the vapors from the entire internals of the engine, which means under the valve covers, the bowels of the engine, and the oil pan. And so and folks, what we're talking about here, so you can better understand, look at any commercial kitchen or look at the side of any fast food, and you'll see this big oven hood, and look at the grease that runs out of the hood. Now, in your car's engine, all that vapors that comes off the cooking stove, which is your engine, all those vapors is inhaled by the lungs of the engine. And Bob, that's where the problem is, because the lungs of the engine include all of the runners for each intake. If you've got 6 cylinders, 4 cylinders, 12 cylinders, 10 or 8, you coat all that lungs with this film of oil, and then when you turn the motor off, the oil that lubricates the valve guides runs down and builds up and coats to the back of the valve, and then on top of that, you pour 7% of the exhaust particulate back into the engine as exhaust gas recirculation. Now you've got a wet wall of oil, and you throw an exhaust on it, and then you cook it, and it turns into a layer, and layer after layer after layer, and pretty soon the engine, I have pictures of an Audi A5 V8 that we worked on this week, and I will tell you, it has dual intake runners and flapper motors and what have you, and we did a GDI. It's a gasoline direct injection, and we had the intake off for an oil leak. When we pulled the intake off, you can't believe what the intake valves looked like. All of the intake valves they're 2 per cylinder, were coked up severely with carbon. The flappers looked like ashes that were solidified and coked up on these flappers. And we did a complete service, and so we had our chemistry that we buy a company that we buy our chemistry from. The gentleman came in and gave us a kit and said, "Here, use this, and let's decarbon this engine while it's open." So we said, "Okay, now's a great time." So we had to turn the crank by hand and fill each little intake pocket with this chemical, and take a wire toothbrush and scrub and scrub and scrub, and then use a vacuum to suck that stuff out. And some of it had to get into the motor because we had to change the oil afterwards, which we did. And so now that's direct injection. So here's part of the answer. Guess what Ford's going to do in 2017 with their EcoBoost engine?
And add another injector. But that's why I'm saying is if you can change the chemistry of what's coming in there, you would reduce the carbon. You wouldn't be able to do anything with the oil leaking down through the valve guides, but you could stop all the vapors, the oil vapors from the crankcase and the exhaust recirculation.
Where would you put them? Where would you put them?
Well, you basically combust it, and then you would inject it back into the engine. Well, what you're doing is you're burning it up ahead of time. Before you inject it back, put it back in the engine, in the intake.
So
Mix it back in with the intake air.
You're saying use an afterburner, and then let
a small combustor somewhere in that airstream. In other words, you know what's coming in, and use a small like an afterburner, but it's really a combustor before the vapors and everything get into the intake. Mix it with the intake air, and of course it's going to warm everything up, and you'd have to allow for that, but it would allow for faster engine warming if that's the case. I don't know how much vapor you would have and how much you'd have to burn, but the point is, if you could combust it, all those vapors coming off the engine before they hit the intake, you're changing the chemistry of what you're doing there.
Agreed.
So you wouldn't have the raw oil vapors coating the valves and putting the layer upon layer upon layer.
Agreed. Hey, thank you so much for your call and for your input. And when you get that combustor designed, let me know. We'll go to Ford, GM, and Chrysler and save them. And it can save a lot of money. I'll tell you. And Bob, we have to move on. Thank you so much for your call. We're going to go to Greg. And then also we have James Bell coming up, the Director of Corporate Communications with Kia. And he is in the queue as well. So, Greg, I want to thank you for holding. I don't want to cut you short, but we only have a short time. Would you please state your question? Let's see if I can answer it before we go to the break.
Bobby.
But Greg.
Okay, I'll just really quickly share with you. On a 2003 Toyota 4Runner, had an ABS light that came on, took it in to the dealer, and they wanted to replace the entire ABS system. And the problem was I took it to a mechanic that I know because it was like a $3,000 bill. So I took it to the mechanic, and we found this, that on the ABS system, there's an electric device that operates the pump. And so we found an aftermarket one that's been made for $600. We put it on there, and it failed. It didn't work. It only worked for a minute. So he took apart the old pump, and it's got brushes inside there that go up against that copper, I forget the word, that starts with an A.
Armature, yeah.
And armature. And he cleaned it. He basically
Unbelievable. Hey, folks, we're going to come back with James Bell. Stay tuned. This Light is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Before you take your next summer road trip, visit O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simple preventive maintenance items will ensure a safe journey wherever you go. Parts and accessories like oil and filter, wiper blades, belts and hoses, even a new battery. Auto Parts has the parts you need at guaranteed low prices. Don't get stuck while you're on vacation. Make sure your vehicle is ready before you hit the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly.
At O'Reilly Auto Parts, you're guaranteed to get the everyday low price on the parts you need. Our guaranteed low prices ensure you're always getting our best deal. In fact, we'll match any local auto parts store's price on any like item. We have the parts you need at prices you can be sure of at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Studies show that Americans do want a choice at the pump by a 3-to-1 margin. For more information about America's fuel, drive to ethanolrfa.org. That's ethanolrfa.org. Good morning, Car Clinic listeners nationwide. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for about 45 years. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Coast. Go to nweekly.net. Look for Best of the Coast voting, click Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, then key in Bobby Likis for Best Oil Change and Best Automotive Service Shop. 4 simple steps, nweekly.net, Services, scroll all the way to the bottom, key in Bobby Likis for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Great show today. Call with your questions at 888 Car Clinic. On the hotline with us now is James Bell, Director of Corporate Communications for Kia Motors. James, welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Oh, Bobby, it's such a pleasure to be back with you. I'm really happy to be here and hear your voice again. It's fantastic.
And the same goes here. Share with our Car Clinic listeners and viewers a little news about Kia's recent J.D. Power Award for initial quality.
Well, it's pretty darn amazing. I joined Kia on a Monday and about a month ago, and my second day on the job, Kia has given a fantastic award that really makes me glad that I've joined this company. I already knew that Kia was in a real transitional space. Once upon a time, the vehicles were kind of seen as alternatives to a used car. Maybe didn't have a lot of appeal, but the company made a conscious decision about a decade ago. They really started to focus in on reliability and durability. Then shortly after that, they hired over a gentleman by the name of Peter Schreider, who used to do a lot of design work for Audi and other European makers. Because if you're going to make a car, you got to bend the sheet metal, so you might as well bend it nice. And so that impact has started to be seen where the cars have a lot more emotional appeal now. And then, they started to come out with a line of vehicles that had that appeal across the board. You could start to really recognize and sense the Kia when you saw one, and people really aspired for it. A little background on the IQS study for J.D. Power. They've been doing that for 31 years now. And the last 27 years, this initial quality award has been won by luxury brands, and which makes sense. Again, it's talking to people, say, okay, you've had this vehicle for 90 days. Tell us about it. Is it meeting your expectations? Is it easy to use? Has it been reliable? Just all these initial quality type points. So again, for 27 years, that's been a luxury brand all along those time. Now you jump to 2016. Big news is the fact it's not a luxury brand, so that kind of shakes things up. But then you add on top of it that it's Kia. That's the winner of this award in 2016, beating Porsche, Mercedes, Lexus, you name it. So it's a pretty darn good time for me to join this company that's on the up.
Well, and you can take, for whatever it's worth, you could take credit. You were there 2 days, the second day, so you had a positive influence.
I've tried. Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate that. I've tried, but it's not working out for me.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll just reinforce that as we go along. I understand that Kia's reached some historic new heights after winning this award. Share a little news about that.
Yeah, well, our sales have been incredible as well. In fact, we've just in the last month of June's numbers, had our best June ever. We're on a pace to have the best year ever in Kia's existence here in the U.S. It's just everything is just really starting to rock and roll. And again, I think it comes back to the fact that it's an aspirational business. It's an emotional business. People make car decisions for reasons that aren't always about logic. Aren't always about cost of ownership or rational, logical points. Sometimes it's all about just feeling good in what you're in. And I think, the Kia Soul has really embodied a quirky, unique, yet efficient and smart way to get around town, but do it with a great, scoop of style. So you've got that vehicle doing great. The Sorento as well is just been on fire. That mid-size crossover space has been fantastic for the entire industry. And now Kia's got a fantastic vehicle to compete in that space. It's a really fantastic time, and we're expecting to have a record year for 2016 as well. So obviously it's not just my enthusiasm. There's a lot of happy customers out there as well.
I concur, and I can tell you from a service standpoint, the Kia has come a long way, and there's not a week that goes by that I'm not asked, well, what do you think about a new car? And Kia is always in the hunt for sure, and I've recommended those cars. We're talking with James Bell, Kia's Director of Corporate Communications. James, I do have a couple of more questions, but what's your primary goal, and what will you do on a daily basis with Kia?
Well, I'm going to be managing and running their corporate communications and PR, and media interaction functions. So it's going to be working with a fantastic team that's been here for some time, which also says something good about the company, that people are happy to work there. And so I'm going to be just making sure that the Kia brand is in the mix. It doesn't have to be one car for everybody, but we're making some very efficient, very reliable, and very pretty cars these days. So that's really the trick. And my job is just to make sure that people are aware of that.
Now, you talk about reliability. Kia owners reported, as I understand the study, fewer issues with their vehicles within the first 90 days of ownership than all other car and truck brands in the U.S., which I think is phenomenal. Shed some light on those findings. What specifically does that mean?
You're right. The entire brand came out number one. I think we beat Porsche by 1 point. But you know what? We'll take that point. And Porsche owners are generally seen as being very passionate, very engaged in their vehicles. They buy a Porsche for a reason, and they love to tell people about it.
No doubt.
So the fact that we were able to pass Porsche by a point was great. And then two of the vehicles in particular really contributed strongly to this. One is the Soul, which we already discussed, and the other one is a Sportage. These two vehicles, the Sportage has been in Kia's lineup since it first came to the U.S., and now this is a vehicle that has really captured people's passion in that small crossover space, which, Bobby, as you know, is probably the hottest segment in the car industry right now. So those two vehicles won their classes against some really amazing competition from Honda, Toyota, Nissan, you name it. I mean, the old standard bearers all have taken a little beating at Kia's hands here. And then other vehicles as well. The Forte came in the top three in its segment. The Sorento came in, I think, number two in its segment. So really strong showing across the board, and all that contributed, of course, to a number one brand rating.
Well, that's something for corporate to be proud of, and no doubt for current owners to be proud of. I guess that leads me to one of my final questions. What's next for Kia?
Wow. Well, we've got some interesting things happening, actually. One of the things that I've been privy to now, since being on the job for a little over a month, is looking at some of the future product plans. And we've got a new hybrid electric vehicle and plug-in electric vehicle that's going to be fantastic mileage for people, mileage and utility. That's been kind of the knock on a lot of the fuel-efficient or hybrid-type vehicles, in that, they're more slaves to the design to get as aerodynamic and as efficient as possible, which is how it should be.
Sure.
But they're also not always looking so good or not giving so much utility on the inside. So we've got this new crossover-type hybrid electric vehicle coming out called the Nero next year. But the vehicle that I really can't tell you about too much without losing this job, which I'm already enjoying, is a vehicle that we're going to show off in Detroit later this year, which is really going to shake people up. It's going to be one of those moments in the car industry when you're going to not believe your eyes when you see that the Kia brand is now going to be on a vehicle that you've never seen a Kia play in this segment before.
Well, we'll have to get you back on Bobby Likis Car Clinic when that day comes, the rollout of that vehicle. One final question: where can listeners go for more information about Kia?
Oh, yeah, it's easy. Please just go to kia.com. We've got fantastic links there on the homepage that can take you to all the vehicles we've talked about here today. But the one I like is click into future vehicles and maybe get a sneak peek at some of these ones that I've just been talking about.
That's great. James Bell, Director of Corporate Communications for Kia. James, congratulations on the new position. Always great to have you as my guest in Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Stay well and stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to speaking to you again soon, Bobby.
And let me tell you about James Bell. He is a car guy, and he is also a communicator, and he's also a consumer guy. So he didn't say this, but I've known him for some time now, and he's the individual that connects the boardroom with the consumer on the street. And he just happened to do it through Car Clinic this week. But he's a whale of a guy, and he's passionate about his job, and he should be, because Kia beat out Porsche. Really? Even by 1 point? Doesn't matter. A tenth of a point, it's still number one, the Kia. Let's go to Jeff. And Jeff, I want to welcome you to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I understand that you have a comment on Victor's call, and I'm all ears. Thank you for holding. It was so interesting to talk with James Bell there with Kia. So welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hey, Bobby, enjoy your show, of course. That's why I'm back.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I feel Victor's pain, and I guess we get into a little bit of theory about collapse and financial collapse and gloom and doom.
Right.
I just urge people all the time, at the grocery store especially, go check out Venezuela. They are in collapse. And I just read an article, and they're sitting on some of the world's biggest oil reserves.
Yes.
So, you know, they've got the potential for money, but the way they run their economy, they had 120,000 people on foot leaving to go find food into Colombia. And the biggest deal right now is that Maduro, the president, says for the sake of the nation, they're doing basically forced farming. So they've taken their petrol industry and turned it's dried up. There's no money. They can't buy. They walk to Colombia because they can't buy gasoline. And so, in order to stave off this, and if you look at the signs of the protesters, I mean, they say you're starving us to death. So what are they doing? Collective farming. You people, it's going to be like, you know, China and Vietnam. You're getting out in the rice field, and you're producing for the nation because that's what you need. That's what we need is people producing food for the nation. So get your ass out there. Sorry about that. Get your butt out there.
Well,
and why are they doing that? Because of the way they run their economy, and it's collapsed. And it can happen, and it can happen here. That's just what I got from Victor, and I appreciate his perspective because he's right.
Well, you know, he is right, and he makes some really good points, and he's a regular caller. Well, I never met the man, but he lives in Washington, and he asks some of the most intelligent questions that are naive. I'm talking about in the automotive world, but that's why I think they're intelligent, because he goes off into the technological aspects of particular questions like BMEP, brake mean effective pressure, or cylinder pressure, and combustion properties, and all this. And so he's very analytical. And for that, for me, I don't judge anyone. I try not to judge anyone. I try my best, and I pass that man in the mirror test.
We have to judge everybody, but we do it positively.
Well, we do it. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's a good way to put it. And so I judge what his comment is about the economy by the questions he asked me about something that he doesn't know about, and that's automobiles that I know. So I can talk that game because that's my game. The political, I don't know anything about politics. All I know is that yes, taxes are going up. All I know is that people are more interested in cost than quality, and yet when you go to a doctor, I mean, you don't call a doctor and say, how much do you charge to do open heart surgery? I mean, really? You don't go to a doctor and say, I've got a pain, let's do surgery here. You go to a doctor and say, I've got a pain, could you help me to locate the pain and determine what's causing the problem? And so I'll turn it back to you, sure.
Just let me throw this in there.
Okay.
You spurred a thought there, and that is, we do care about cost over quality, but some of that's forced. We have to sometimes give up quality because we just know it's out of reach. And why is it out of reach? Sucking the life out of us with our tax and our economy.
Yes, sir.
And up where we live, I can see it all around here.
Well, I can only hope that, and hope is the word, and I'm the most optimistic person that I know, because at the end of the day, and there's always a surprise every day in the automotive service world, but at the end of the day, we look at the positive things that we've done, and we strive for that one person that calls and says, hey, since you did this, my car's never run that well, and thank you so much for your efforts. And we went.
I'm working. I'm working on that, Bobby. I'm still working on my little 4-cylinder Plymouth motor. I'm about to put her back together now.
Good. Well, let us know when you get it back together. And Jeff, I really appreciate you calling in and commenting on Victor. I was most anxious and eager to hear what another person would say to his comments versus, and you didn't trash him, you didn't toss him under the bus. And
no, I agree with him.
And yeah, well, unfortunately. Hey, thank you so
Bobby,
much.
Someday, Bobby, I hope you'll be able to take time to address machine shop industry in the U.S. for car, valve shops and machine shops, and anyway, automotive machine shops. I hope you'll be able to address some of that and the state of. He mentioned skills going away. It's apparently it's a little bit hard for guys. They seem to only be able to work for dealers, and that's about it.
Yes, sir. Maybe
you'll address that.
To that end, I will, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. Bye.
And to Jeff, I won't get into the machine shop today, but except to say that this week we have a North Star Cadillac with 102,000 miles on it that we took apart, and the man bought it new, the customer, and he loves it. He wanted to fix it, and it had a blown head gasket. It was sent here by another shop. He brought it here from another shop, and we took the engine out. We've got it out right now. We took the heads to Burke Machine, and Mr. Burke, I have a high amount of respect for this man. I don't know how he does what he does, because that's a lost art. And when he's not going to be here forever, and I don't see anyone going in there and buying his shop and taking over his position. And we sent the heads over there, and he restored the heads. And this engine is one of the cleanest I've ever seen. So when I looked at the engine when it was apart, I understood why the owner wanted to fix it versus getting rid of the car, because the engine was so clean on the inside because of his maintenance on the engine. I mean, the valves were clean, and you can't clean a valve, but sure enough, this one was really clean. And so I guess the question would be begged, well, why did it blow a head gasket? For that, we don't know. But when we get it back together, we'll have to test the radiator and the cooling fans to make sure that our finished product doesn't end up the same way that his does. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember, every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time, we come to you. You can go to watchbobbylive.com or your local AM or FM radio station. I share with you information quite candidly that you just can't find anywhere else. If you have a question, I will share with you the bottom line straight facts. I'm Bobby Likis. Thanks for tuning in. Likis, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, we're testing an Intune i2 performance programmer from Diablo Sport, and we'll share feedback and results over the next few months. First is ease of installation. Directions were clear and the setup was easy. The Intune i2 is preloaded with dyno and street-tested performance programs developed specifically for your car or truck, ensuring optimal power and drivability gains. From there, you can then customize a tune tailored to your own performance needs. What a great way to boost power without even popping the hood. The Diablo Sport Intune i2 has a fantastic look and now features the latest generation ARM processor for a higher resolution screen and an exceptionally responsive touchpad. You can update your i2 software on virtually any computer. Windows, Mac, Linux, and update times are fast. Even the large updates take no more than 5 minutes. I'll report more to you about the Intune i2 in the coming weeks. In the meantime, check out the i2 for yourself at DiabloSport.com. That's DiabloSport.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P-Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, it starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake in the day.